Welcome to Make It To The Dogears. It's uh, November 7th, 2021, and it's about 6 in the morning. And this is my quest to become a polymath. Enjoy 25 minutes of reading, and if you like something, let's discuss it. Here we go. Okay, start this one. This one is called Cleaving the Air. Oh, this is out of Steven Pinker's book, The Stuff of Thought. Let's look into the stuff of thought. Without caring what those variables stand for, or which mechanisms in the world allow the real-life reference of those variables to impinge on one another, it would apply perfectly well to an observer seated in front of a huge display of colored lights who kept track of whether a red light in the top right corner tend to come on a few minutes before a green light in the middle row, unless a yellow square at the bottom left edge flashed twice in between. It therefore leaves out a key component of our causal thinking. The intuition of the world is made of mechanisms and forces with causal powers, some kind of push or energy or oomph that is transmitted from the cause to the effect. The correlations we observe are the products of these powers in action. Even a glance at human behavior suggests that people often think of causation in terms of hidden powers rather than just correlations. Many psychology experiments have shown that when people have a pet theory of how things work, such as damp weather causes arthritis pain, they will swear they can see those correlations in the world, even when the numbers show that the correlations don't exist and never did. The habit of hallucinating causal powers and forcing experience to fit them has shaped human cultures from time immemorial, producing our species' vast compendium of voodoo, astrology, magic, prayer, idolatry, New Age, nostrums, and other flim-flam. Even respectable scientists don't stop at recording correlations, but try to pry open nature's black boxes and identify the hidden powers at work. Sometimes the candidates don't pan out, like phlogiston or the luminiferous ether, but often they do. Phlogiston of the luminiferous ether, but often do, as with genes, atoms, and tectonic plates. Another limitation of probabilistic theories of causation is that they apply to averages over the long run. Smoking causes cancer, and have nothing to say about the causes of specific events. Smoking killed Granny. But people have a sharp intuitions about specific events. Imagine that Uncle Irv, a 2-pack-a-day smoker, is alive and well at 97. Everyone would agree that smoking did not cause him to die. Yet if smoking causes cancer were nothing but a statement of the odds, one couldn't say anything about its applicability to him one way or the other. Granted, people may not be rational in insisting that single events have identifiable causes. If many people die of heart attacks, and a drug slightly increases the risk of a heart attack, and John who took the drug dies of a heart attack, was the drug the cause? One could argue the question has no answer, yet people act as if it does have an answer. In 2005, the widow of a man who had taken the drug Vioxx was awarded $253 million by a jury in a lawsuit against the drug's manufacturer. There are 6,000 similar lawsuits pending. People not only apply a causal relation to a single event, but can infer a causal relation from a single event without requiring the event to be repeated many times. The passengers on the Titanic surely believed that an iceberg caused the ship to sink, even if they had no prior experience of icebergs followed by sinking ships. The simplest demonstration of the difference between recording a correlation over the long run and sensing causal powers in a single event comes from a classic experiment by the psychologist Albert Michoudi. Michoudi showed people animations in which one dot moved along the screen until it contacted the second dot, whereupon the first stopped suddenly and the second started to move in the same direction at the same speed. On their first viewing, people had an unmistakable impression that the first one caused the second to move, like one billiard ball launching another. The same seems to be true for infants as young as 6 months and for at least one species of monkey. Other displays of moving dots convey vivid impressions of related kinds of causation, such as helping, hindering, allowing, and preventing. A recent experiment by the psychologists Mark Hauser and Bailey Spalding has shown that reasoning about causal powers without needing to see a long sequence of events beforehand is part of our primate birthright. Testing rhesus monkeys who had little to no experience with knives or paint, they found the monkeys showed a keen appreciation of their causal powers. The monkeys were unsurprised to see a sequence in which an apple disappeared behind a screen, a hand with a knife followed it, and two apple halves emerged. They were similarly unsurprised to see a white towel and a glass of blue paint disappear behind the screen and a blue towel emerge. But they started as if in disbelief but they stared as if in disbelief when shown causally impossible events, such as a glass of water disappearing with the apple, and then two apple halves emerging, or a blue knife disappearing with the white towel and then a blue towel emerging. So causality can't be reduced to constant conjunction or to possible worlds, and our causal sensibilities aren't quite captured by statistical networks either. How can we make sense of the intuition of oomph that drives our causal instincts? The answer we found in a look at how causation is expressed in words. That was Steven Pinker. He wrote Better Angels of Our Nature. I have the Better Angels of Our Nature. He wrote Enlightenment Now, and a couple other ones. Let's see what this one says. So, it's an afterword, and I don't know what afterword book it comes from, but I think the idea is going to be okay. So, here's... I wish I knew which book this is from. I'll do one from a book I know. Okay, here's one. This is from The Ornament of the World. So The Ornament of the World shows how Muslim, Jews, and Christians came together, I think, back in the day somehow. So this is called The Ornament of the World. And the subtitle is A Grand Vizier, a Grand City. Now led by an imam who claimed direct descent from Fatima, the Prophet's daughter and Ali's wife, issued loud challenges to the Abbasids claimed a true legitimacy and succession, along with the proclamation of an independent state. If the imams of this upstart Muslim polity claimed to represent what an Islamic state was and was meant to be, and to have not merely political but religious authority over all Muslims, how long would the Andalusians, who constituted far more of a threat where legitimacy was concerned, continue to publicly acknowledge the central power of the distant Abbasids? At the time these dramatic events were taking place in North Africa, Abd al-Rahman III, the beloved grandson and heir designate of the ruling Umayyad, Abdullah ibn Muhammad, was 18 years old. When the latter died 3 years later in 912, the young Abd al-Rahman assumed full powers. He spent the first 18 years of his rule reunifying a kingdom that had in recent years suffered from internal bickering and skirmishing that bordered on civil war. He also strengthened his frontiers to the north, pushing deep into the regions of Leon and Navarre, in one famous battle taking and sacking the town of Pamplona. With his own house very much in order and prospering more than ever, with his frontiers in the north under control, Abd al-Rahman was finally ready, in 929, to make his own counterclaim to that of the Fatimids. Here was the voice of the Umayyads now issuing that house's long-delayed assertion of defiance to the Abbasids who had murdered and displaced it. It seems unlikely that Abd al-Rahman imagined he could establish the sort of political unity across the broad Islamic universe that his Syrian ancestors had once had, and that in a limited way the Abbasids had hung on to for some time. The House of Islam was not broken down into too many separate and rivalrous polities, each in its own region with its own character and army. But he was quite right to understand that the struggle for the symbolic leadership that the position of caliph entailed was open to contest. The commander of the faithful was the arbiter, in some fundamental sense, of the way Islam was to be correctly lived, and the Andalusian Abd al-Rahman surely believed that way to be as the Umayyads lived it. It is a fat land full of rivers, springs, and stone-cut wells, wrote Hashai in his letter to the king of the Khazars. Hasdai had heard fabulous accounts of an entirely Jewish kingdom, Khazaria, an alleged 15-day journey from Constantinople and to the northeast of the Black Sea. As he introduced himself to a correspondent he could only hope existed, Haza described his Andalusian homeland, alluding modestly to his own role there. It is a land of grains, wines, and purest oils, rich in plants, a paradise of every sort of sweet, with gardens and orchards where every kind of fruit tree blossoms, and those with silkworms in their leaves. The land also has its own sources of silver and gold, and in her mountains we mine copper and iron, tin and lead, coal and marble, and crystal. The king ruling over the land has amassed silver, gold, and other treasures, along with an army the likes of which has never been amassed before. When other kings hear of the power and glory of our king, they bring gifts to him. I receive those offerings, and I in turn offer them recompense. Hasdai in Sharpa was born in Cordoba in 915 into a world brightly lit for Jews. In the previous 150 years of Umayyad rule, the Jews of Al-Andalus had become visibly prosperous, materially to be sure, and culturally even more so. To say they were thoroughly Arabized is to acknowledge that they did a great deal more than merely learn to speak the language of the rulers, something they no doubt did in the same several first generations, alongside Berber Muslims, Slavic slaves, and Visigothic converts. Yes, I knew it was about the Muslims and Christians. But the thing is, you don't know how many cultures, how many ideas and stories, how many... I mean, I'm excited about this one too. I guess when I start doing this, I should maybe talk about my own thoughts, but I'm just trying to get through a lot of it. And so this one I wanted to read, I have it right there, I can see it. It's called Soulmate. It's about being with yourself, having confidence in your own abilities. And this is from Soulmate. The subtitle is Managing Fear So It Doesn't Manage You. Let's try this one. Sure, it's a grounded decision that's not based on an immediate emotional reaction, which can be fleeting and spring from unconscious fears and trance states. How do you gather information about the unknown? By knowing yourself and effectively evaluating your situation or goal. Below are 3 things you can do when faced with a new life decision and to help you to move beyond the boundaries of your comfort zone. Weigh the pros and cons. Make a list of all the pros and cons related to making the change and evaluate them carefully. This helps you alleviate confusion, enables you to distinguish between fantasy and reality. Once you have all the pros and cons listed, go back and rate each item listed on the pro side. Use a scale of 1 to 10 based on its importance or value to you. 1 is the lowest importance or value to you, and 10 is the highest. Now rate each item listed on the con side, using a scale of 1 to 10 based on its degree of negative impact. 1 is the lowest negative impact, 10 is the highest, a deal breaker. Now add up the total in each column and compare them. Are there more pros or cons? Are there any 10s, deal breakers, on your con side? Number 2, check in with your intuition. Ask yourself, how does this sit with me? How does it feel? Your intuition is an instinctive knowing or gut feeling about whether or not something is right for you. It's not a conclusion you reach based on reasoning or emotions. Emotions and intuition are very different. Your emotions can change from day to day, even moment to moment. Your intuitive feeling about something, on the other hand, tends to remain pretty consistent. If you're making a big decision that takes you out of your comfort zone, you need to feel certain that it is the right one. So you want to check in with your intuition over a period of time, over days or weeks or even months, to see how that decision sits with you. Later in the book, we'll be focusing more intently on developing your intuition, which is an important tool for living in alignment with your authentic self. Number 3, do a reality check. Ask yourself, is this a decision that's aligned with my capabilities, with my goals, with who I really am? Drill down as far as you need to go, hitting all the relevant points. For example, is this something I can afford? How will it affect other aspects of my life? What are the logistics? What am I hoping to gain? Is that goal within my reach? Taking manageable steps. Not every step forward has to be a big one. Sometimes you have to take baby steps from moving beyond your comfort zone. Yeah, that's a coffee. Yeah, so that's a good one. Okay. This one is what got me started on my rap career. This book is called Outliers. And I'm gonna revisit it right now and understand when I can understand pieces, I feel like I'm a part of the conversation. And who could I not have a conversation with at this point? You know? Anyway, so this is Outliers, and then here by Malcolm Gladwell, and the subtitle is The Trouble with Geniuses Part 2. Alex, I'm only one. I've been getting some bumps on my arms right around here. Indicates underarm. Doctor, underneath? Alex, yeah. Doctor, okay, I'll have to look at those when I come in closer to the checkup. And I'll see what they are and what I can do. Do they hurt or itch? Alex, no, they're just there. Doctor, okay, I'll take a look at those bumps for you. This kind of interaction simply doesn't happen with lower class children, Laurel says. They would be quiet and submissive with eyes turned away. Alex takes charge of the moment. In remembering to raise the question and prepared in advance, he gains the doctor's full attention and focuses it on the issue of his choosing, Laurel writes. In so doing, he successfully shifts the balance of power away from adults and toward himself. The transition goes smoothly. Alex is used to being treated with respect. He is seen as special and as a person worthy of adult attention and interest. These are key characteristics of the strategy of concerted cultivation. Alex is not showing off during his checkup. He's behaving much as he does with his parents. He reasons, negotiates, and jokes with equal ease. It's important to understand where the particular mastery of that moment comes from. It's not genetic. Alex Williams didn't inherit the skills to interact with authority figures from his parents and grandparents the way he inherited the color of his eyes, nor is it racial. It's not a practice specifically to black or white people. As it turns out, Alex Williams is black and Katie Brindle is white. It's a cultural advantage. Alex has those skills because over the course of his young life, his mother and father, in the manner of educated families, have painstakingly taught them to him, nudging and prodding and encouraging and showing him the rules of the game, right down to that little rehearsal in the car on the way to the doctor's office. We talk about the advantages of class. Laurel argues this is in large part what we mean. Alex Williams is better off than Katie Brindle because he's wealthier and because he goes to better school, but also because, and perhaps is even more critical, the sense of entitlement he has been taught is not too perfectly suited to succeed in the modern world. This is the advantage that Oppenheimer had and that Chris Langan lacked. Oppenheimer was raised in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods of Manhattan, the son of an artist and a successful garment manufacturer. His childhood was the embodiment of concerted cultivation. On weekends, the Oppenheimers would go driving in the countryside in a chauffeur-driven Packard. Summers he would be taken to Europe to see his grandfather. He attended the Ethical Culture School in Central Park West, perhaps the most progressive school in the nation, where his brag for his right, students were infused with the notion that they were being groomed to reform the world. His math teacher realized he was bored, she sent him off to do independent work. So that goes into culture. The way in acting like you're entitled can actually be beneficial. You know that. Okay, here's one on climate change. And then I may do some writing on my Facebook later, guys, if you want to see it. But here's the thing. This was on climate change. I'm having a blast. It's only been 18 minutes. I got like 3 or 4 more pages to read before break, because I don't want to make them too big, too long. So this one's on climate change. The book is called Hot. And I believe the subtitle to the name Hot is Life in the Next 50 Years. And then the subtitle to this book, Hot, is called This Was a Crime. Obama maintained that unyielding hope had triumphed over long odds again and again in the past. Miss Cooper was born in 1902. Obama said someone like her could not vote because of both her sex and her skin color. But she lived to see many supposedly impossible things come to pass. Women and African Americans winning the right to vote, man walking on the moon, the fall of the Berlin Wall. Yes, we can, Obama had said during his campaign, urging Americans to believe in their ability to come together and change their country. Now unyielding hope had made a man of mixed race and humble origins the nation's 44th president. And he hoped it would continue to guide America through the undoubted difficulties ahead. For while we breathe, we hope, Obama concluded. And where we are met with cynicism, doubt, and those who tell us we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. If ever a problem cried out for the unyielding hope of yes we can, it is climate change, and President-elect Obama seemed to agree. In his victory speech he called the planet in peril one of the three biggest problems awaiting him in the White House, given equal billing with the worst financial crisis in our lifetimes and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the first time an American president put climate change so high on his agenda. What's more, Obama seemed inclined toward very sort of green power project that Schonhuber had advocated. During the campaign, Candidate Obama proposed that the government make large investments in alternative energy in order to protect not only the atmosphere but America's economy and national security by reducing its dependence on foreign oil. As president, Obama carried through on his commitment in his first weeks in office, embedding green energy initiatives throughout the economic stimulus package intended to halt the freefall of the economy after the global financial crisis. The stimulus package contains $71 billion in direct green spending and $20 billion in green tax incentives. Spending on alternative energy increased to 3 times the level it had been under Bush. Greening the stimulus package was a good start, but it paled against all the United States needed to do if the climate is to stabilize in time. Indeed, the urgency of the challenge facing Obama stemmed largely from how late he was coming on stage in the climate drama. The 2 lost decades preceding his arrival in the White House meant that his policies, though a substantial improvement on Bush's, fell well short of what was needed to limit global temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius. By 2009, preventing catastrophic climate change would require almost a revolution in America's behavior. It would require, as Schonbauer said, a Green Apollo program. In urging such a program, Schonbauer had unwittingly put a new name on a set of ideas and policies that Al Gore and numerous others had already proposed. In his 1992 book, Earth in the Balance, Gore had urged the U.S. government to initiate a Green Marshall Plan, like the aid program that Washington financed after World War II to resuscitate the war-torn economies of Europe. Gore wrote, a Green Marshall Plan would help developing nations shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy resources. In my 1998 book, Earth Odyssey, I proposed a global Green Deal modeled on the New Deal U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt had championed against the Depression in the 1930s. 6 years of traveling around the world had convinced me that the fight for environmental solutions had been linked to the fight against poverty. You cannot ask poor people to do without today in order to build a greener tomorrow, and when half the world is poor, the poor cannot be ignored. In 2008, New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman argued in his book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded, I have that book, that America needed to launch a green revolution, both to combat climate change and free the country from the grip of what he called petro-dictators. By 2009, versions of a global Green Deal had been urged by senior politicians and key citizens groups the world over, including the Secretary General of the United Nations, Prime Minister of Japan, Foreign Minister of Germany, and leading labor and environmental groups in Britain and the United States, including the latter's Apollo Alliance. In February 2009, in the depth of the financial crisis, Gore and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon urged governments to stabilize the situation with spending that not only addressed social needs, but launched a new green global economy. Noting that 34 nations planned $2.25 trillion in stimulus spending, Ban and Gore warned that channeling the money into carbon-based infrastructure and fossil fuel subsidies would be like investing in subprime real estate all over again. So I think it's about time to wrap this one up. Yeah, keep about 25 minutes or less. But I'm keeping this one. This one's actually... Oh, wait. I think that's philosophy. Yeah, it's philosophy next. But I like this video. It was fun. Thank you, folks. I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you.